So I'm using V for writing the source code. This is the first time I'm using some IDE integrated development environment for developing a code. In the session, we'll see how to use it. I'm sure that most of you are comfortable with using IDE environments and you use different environments like NetBeans or Eclipse, maybe Visual Studio. Right now I'm using VS Code just to write the code. In the last session, I have used Debian system while conducting the earlier lecture, and we developed a code in which we have seen how to put some components on the frame and how to handle the event of the buttons. That what is we have covered. Now in this, we are going to see add some more components. Uh, Let me say import java x dot swing start second. Important for see, I will never write my UI code in the class that I'll make as public till the point it is not absolutely necessary. So I'll always recommend to keep your operational classes as in a separate entity, and the actual code which is suppose I want to develop a UI for some operation, then I'll prefer to use different classes for writing operational code, and my main method will always go in some different class. So what is the benefit of using these approaches? Let's say that I have my main method in class second, and my operational code is in other class, which I can call. Let's say I've developed something called as UI is my class, and if I create an object of this UI class, then my object will be created and that frame will be visible. Now anybody who have access to the .class file will be able to instantiate the frame and use it. If I let's say if I say extends second class, and if I say second extends JFrame, and if I create a frame out of that class, then it will be hard for other person to use it. Why? Because the second class is going to have its own main method, and it is not the expected behavior. Like your class already have a main method, then you launch then you go inside that main method and then you create a UI. Then I will not recommend this because that main method is not necessary inside that class. So it's preferred to have a separate operation class and entry point, keep the entry point as in a separate class. That is always better. If you see the manuals, lab, if you see the professional documentation, you'll find that people always prefer to have separate development classes and main method or the entry point as a separate class. Or even for every functionality, people used to prefer, people like to have different classes rather than depending on a single class. So this is what we should do. Now I will create a class called as UI, which will say extends JFrame, right? So this is the class which is going to provide a UI for me. Public UI. This will be the constructor. Uh, for setting up the components, and the discussion was not complete. Our lab session ended, so I was not able to cover the entire session. We were discussing something about which line has to be must be the last lines in the constructor and which line must be the first line in the constructor. That kind of discussion was going on, so we will cover those discussion in the lab session. It was hardly of half hour and the session ended because of the net connectivity. So we will find the extra slot, and in that we will discuss again where to put some lines, where not to put some code, what is the reason, preferred style of writing code. That all discussion will go continue with the lab session. So I'll simply go and say this dot set visible. This should be the last line in my code, true, which will make my frame visible. And this dot set size to 300 comma 300, right? This dot set default goes operation, and we are going to make use of one constant called exit on close. So these are things that I'll to always have at the as a last line of the constructor, which is creating the actual frame. Now, if we save this and we know that it is going to create a frame for us, now just let me use Java C and the program file name is second.java. Not find symbol, set DFAU default rows operation. Okay, fine. And here Java second. Now it should create a frame. Now frame is visible and available, so I'm able to use it. Okay, so the basic code is ready. Now let's add components. The second thing is I will never recommend to create a component in the main method like jbutton b1. Somebody may prefer this style and create a initialize a button and then add to the obj.b1. Like somebody can write here like this obj.add. I will never recommend this code, this kind of coding style. It's always better to make the buttons as a part of a class and then initialize them inside a constructor and then use them. This style of coding have its own merits, and you will find what are the merits of using uh, declaring object inside a class and initializing it inside a constructor and then adding to the frame. This style of coding have its own merits, so we'll come across these merits as we proceed. So let me create a JButton. Now I'll recommend that you should say JButton BTN and its name. Let's say I want to perform a copy operation. So I'll say BTN copy. Now this is another style which you should follow while writing the code. So JButton BTN copy. Now what happens is you go, suppose your program code is of 100 lines and you go down the line, you are at the 100th line, you don't need to scroll up and down to find what is the name of the component. You can simply see that component name is btn and it tells you that it is a button component. So it is always preferred to mark kind of a signature to identify which kind of component that it is. So it is always better to you do that. So j text field, let me say txt. Now this will tell me that it is a text field, right? So now I know what are these components and how I can use them. So let's quickly add these components in the program. In the frame, button copy, we put a new button. Let's call this button as copy. Okay, so the button has become the part of the program. Now let's initialize the text field too. Let me give 10 columns to this text field and let's say this dot add txt. Now the both components have become the part of the frame, right? Now let's quickly go and add event handling. So I'll say implements action listener. And now we know that if I compile this program, there will be a error which will tell that if you want to use this, you have to override a method called as action perform. Let's see this error. Happy Java C second or Java. The program will say that okay, yeah, here you can see that not find symbol action listener. I must import a package java.awt.event for making that listener available. Java C. Now here you can see that it is not an abstract class and does not implement a method called as action perform, which accepts an action event, right? So let me quickly add that method. So let me say string message is equal to ae.get command, and then if message dot equals into bracket, we know that the text is copy what we can do is we can put one message using the option into this comma. Let's print this message. Let's see. Let's observe this works or not. Before that, the button must register itself with for a action listener method. So I can write here button copy dot add action listener into bracket this. Now here we have in the last session also we discussed about why this keyword, right? Java C, let's say second dot Java. Okay. Well, I haven't added the button to the frame. Yeah, I must set a layout. Now the entire frame is acquired by the text field. So see how crucial it is to provide a layout manager because we are adding two components. The first component was overwritten by the second component as soon as we added it. So we were not able to have access to the button. So let me use layout manager, and we have discussed, well, we have seen something called as flow layout in the last session. So I'll go with the flow layout. There are other layout managers, so we'll see them one by one in the upcoming sessions. So let me compile one more time. Okay, now for layout manager, I have to use import java.awt star. Now let's compile and run. Now here I have both components. Now if I click on copy button, I get a message on the screen, right? Now let's explore some of the other components that we can add to the program. Now let's get something out of this button. What we will do is here I'll say string data is equal to txt dot get text. Here I'll say uh, says or text field has message is equal to text field has message is equal to whatever the message is, and here I'll add the variable which is data. Now again let's quickly compile and run. Now let me type here Kolhapur and click on this. Text field as message is equal to Kolhapur. Now this is what we are getting done out of this component, that something is inside the text field. We are getting that message using the copy button. Now let's explore some other options and then we'll set up the first task using the UI programming. So let's there is a control. Now if we decide to create a form control on we know that on the form you have the option like label and then the text field, and then you have a button. We have already seen a button. Now you have something, a button which is of round in shape, a button which is in a square in the shape. We call it as a checkbox or the option box, and we use this buttons for different tasks. So what we'll do is we'll explore some of the controls that we can add to our frame and use them. So let's do one by one. So let's explore something called as radio button. Now I will call it as RBTN, which tells me that this is a radio button. And let me call there. Let me create two buttons: RBTN yes and no. Now I'll initialize these buttons. Now see, look at my constructor also. What I'm doing is I am grouping my code depending on what the code belongs to. For example, these two lines belong to the text control. So I'm adding one space before writing a next line of code. this code belongs to the button control, button copy control. So only these three lines are consecutive. Then there is a line of there is a space of one line. So this kind of coding style is also helpful in understanding where the code is, how to, if suppose some error comes, then it will be easy to debug the program. Now what I'll do is I'll go on adding the button radio button control code after the text control. So let's initialize your radio button control. Now look at the coding style. It is like replication of what we have done with the text control and the button, simple button control. RBTN no is equal to new radio button, and let me call this button as no. This will be the label, and let's add simply this control to the frame. So I'll say RBTN no, right, and put a semicolon. Let me compile the program again one more time and run. Now you can see the button has play button is placed on the screen. So immediately let's add another button, which is yes, new radio button. And I'll call it as yes, this dot add. Yes. Now we must see that there are two controls which are added to the frame. So now you can see here is one thing that we have to observe is both radio buttons we can select at the same time. So I'm able to select yes and no. It is as good as saying true and false at the same time. So we always know that either it is true or a false, either it is yes or a no. So both values can't be true at the same time. But right now, even if I'm using an option box or a radio button, I'm in the position to select both the controls at the same time, and the state of the both controls is true, right? Both are selected. So this is not a good case in case you want to have, you want to make force the user that he must be able to select only one button out of these two controls, and if the either is selected, the second must get automatically unselected. So if we want to do it, there is something called as a button group. We have to add this button group facility, right? So let's go and add button group facility. Now button group facility is from AWT package. We have already imported the AWT package for event handling, right? So there is no need to add another import statement here. One important part, see, the AWT and Swing technology is going hand in hand. We are using components from we are using controls from both the families, like we are using Swing family as well as we are using event handling options from AWT. Sometimes students make a mistake. What they do is they create controls like this button B1, and let me initialize this button B1 right after the radio buttons. B1 is equal to new button, and let me call it as AWT button control, right? Put a semicolon. Let's compile this and run. Compiled, run. Now here, okay, I haven't added to the frame. Only button was created, so I have to say this dot add B1. Now here you can see that, look at how the swing button is looking. What is the look and feel of the button of swing? And look at how this button looks, right? So this is very wrong or very bad programming practice where we are using one component from Swing family and one component from AWT family. So it is a trickier question. Like people ask us, it is whether we should use Swing and AWT technology together or not. Yes, we can use Swing and AWT technology together, and it is recommended to use. But if somebody asks you whether to use Swing components and AWT components together or not, the answer is obviously no. We should not use Swing and AWT components in the same program. Component in means like button control of AWT and button control of Swing. We must not add any component of AWT into the Swing program or the frame or the program in which we are using Swing controls. We should not add control of AWT family, and vice versa also. If we are developing a UI using complete AWT tree family, then we must not add any control or component of swing inside it. So we will always keep the AWT and swing technology separate, but we will use them in hand when we'll develop a UI. For example, here I'm using event handling of AWT, and I'm also going to make use of something called as a button group from AWT. But all the components I'm using only from swing family. So we will keep that in mind. So both technologies are going hand in hand, but components are only from one family, which is swing, and there is no component from AWT family. So that is an important point. So let me remove this code. It's in a very what we can say. It is an example of what must not be done. Now let me remove this also button. What we were discussing was like compile, run. I'm able to select both the option buttons. This is not the good case. We need to, if we select no, then yes must not be selected. If we select yes, then no must not be selected. So let's do it. There is a control called as a button group. This control is from AWT family, right? This control, but there is no UI for this button control. It's just a facility from AWT. So what we can do is we can initialize this button group. Let's say bg is equal to new button group, and then we say bg dot add rbt and no, yes and no. So both the controls are registered with button group. Now this is one button group. So what happens is from the button group, if there are multiple components are added to the button group, you will be able to select only one button out of the multiple components which are inside button group. Now if I compile this again, if I select no, now if I see, now no is selected. Earlier there was no control selected. Now if I select yes, the no gets automatically deselected, which was not happening in the earlier case. Now, because we have registered both the controls with the button group, we will be able to select only one component from the both components. So this happens because of button group. As both components are registered inside a button group BG, from the button group, we'll be able to select only one component. So let's do a event handling for the radio buttons. Before that, let's add a checkbox control. So before proceeding further, I'll take a look at a chat box. Is all clear or any doubt? If you have any doubt, please put it in chat box. Shall we proceed? Okay. Okay, there is one question. Can we add only radio button in the button group? Okay, this is a nice question by Kshitij. Kshitij, see, the button group is from AWT family. So in the AWT family, there is also a control called as checkbox. Let me demonstrate that. Let me demonstrate that. Any other question? So I have only one question from Kshitij. Before proceeding, let's answer this question. So again, this is not recommended. Don't do it. Let me create something called as checkbox. Let me call it as CB is equal to box, and let me call it as 2, and this dot add. Okay, so yeah, then I'll go with the swing control only. And just what I have to do is I have to add checkbox. Here also I have to rate checkbox. And then swing and compile this second.java. Okay. Straight, second. Now let's say Java second. Let's run. Now here you can see that there is a square control added to the frame. Actually, I wanted to show you the checkbox control from the AWT family, which would have been actual correct option. Now we are able to select this box and not say unselect this box. Now what we can do is we can add one more control. Let me create one more control called as CB1, and let me add this CB1 to the program. And this time I will say this CB1 as false. Right now, let's compile and run. Oh, here there are two checkboxes, and it is good that we are able to select both options. Like we sometimes call it as a multi-choice box or multiple options. If the multiple options are correct, then we probably see these square boxes. So this is fine. But in this case, yes, no, we must be able to select only one box. Now in AWT technology, you do not have radio buttons. You have only checkbox buttons available. Now in that case, this checkbox buttons can be converted into radio buttons. So how it can be done is, what we will do is we will say bg dot add cb and bg dot add cb1. If we do this, and if we compile the program again, now you can see that we can select only one checkbox. It is not possible to select both one. Now if it is a AWT control that I use right now, I must be making some error in the spell of checkbox of AWT. There must be some other control name. So if it's a AWT control that I use to represent a checkbox, then what you'll find is that as soon as you add them to the button group, this square representation will be turned into a round representation, right? So you can add multiple variety of components where you want to give option to the user that either or must be selected. So wherever there is an option of selecting only one control out of multiple available controls, then you can use button group to add the controls. Have I answered the question, Kshitish? Let me open up the chat box. Yeah, okay. Inaudible. Am I audible? Rajvardhan is not able to hear me. Is my voice audible to you people? Yeah, okay. Yes, audible. So there is also a question, can we change labels at a runtime dynamically? Yes, it is possible to change the labels dynamically. This is a set title property. So if you change the title of any of the control, you would be able to set the name. You would be able to change the label, right? So this is not a big deal. You have to just call that particular control. Let's say, I hope during the lab session I used something called as init method. So if you as you proceed in your programming career, you will find that the initialize method is preferred by many programmers for initializing the components which are added to the frame. So if you write multiple init methods and if you make that method available to different controllers, what you can do is you can change the representation of how the component is going to look like. Like initially you may set it to something, then you may use that same control, same frame for representing some other data. So that is possible. Yes. Any other question? Who asked this? It is asked by Harshit. Harshit, have I answered the question? Yeah, okay. Any other question? Okay, let's. What if I want to select strictly two or more options? Then don't add them to the button group. There is a question from Shubham. Shubham says that what if I want to select multiple options? Then I'll prefer to use checkbox controls, and I will not add them to the groups. I will just use the style. Let me compile and run. Now here I will be able to select multiple controls at the same time. Lecture? Huh? Lectures are. हो या म्हटले तर मग लेक्चर सोडून द्यावं लागेल. So we are able to select multiple values, multiple controls at the same time. Have I answered your question, Shubham? Harshit. Okay, I will take the questions one by one. So who's this question by Shubham? Shubham, have I answered your question, or question was something else and I have answered something else? I didn't get you. Shubham, can you explain me? Here, no, sir. Here only one option can be selected is the answer is the reply from Shubham Jain. Shubham, can you please unmute yourself and explain your question? It will be good.
Excuse me, sir.
Huh?
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible.
Sir, I want strictly two or more options to be selected. If only one option is selected, then we must not proceed. That I want.
Okay, so you want me like if this is the case, then program must not proceed, right?
Ye- Yes, sir.
So what do you mean by proceed? Proceed means I must not be able to click on any other button or what? Proceed means what? In what is the meaning of proceed in your case? Shubham, are you there? Should give alert. So,
Sir,
huh, yeah, you are audible to me. You can speak. So I think what Shubham is saying that I must not be able to select only one control. If there is only one control selected, there should be alert. Is that what you want to say, Shubham?
yes, sir.
So let me tell you, it will be a logical loop here. Let's say if I say only true, huh? And now I want to go to no, then you are saying that your program must give you a warning that you must select two controls out of this group, right? Now, in this case, the program must give. Let me run the program again. If I got you correctly, please tell me. If I run this and if I got this, if I select this true, which is another group, and now if I click on copy button or something else, I should get a message that I must select two options, minimum two options. Is that what you want, Shubham? Hello, am I audible? Okay, Shubham, are you there? Hello, I don't know whether he is in the Shubham Jain privately. Yes. So it is what you want, right? So obviously, this is if you are expecting that if we select one control and if we click on some other part and then the program should give a one, it's a logic thing. Like we have to, the controls are not going to do it on their own. We have to write that logic in the program. So what you have to do is there is something called as a listener event listener. We are going to do it shortly. We are going to add a listener for both yes no buttons and for true false button. And there is something called as get selected. So if something is selected, and if you want both two or more controls to be selected, then what you can write is get the value, get the name of true control and see whether it is selected or not. And again, get the value of false control and see whether it is selected or not. If both are not selected, then they show option dialog box. If only one control is selected, then also show the dialog box. And if no the control selected, then also show the dialog box. So you have to write that code on the copy button. So that button will go on, that code go inside the event handling of copy button and no nowhere else. Or that code goes inside the event handling of no or yes no button. Okay. So you have to write that code in the coding handling of copy or yes no button wherever you want to handle this particular part. Have I answered the question, Shubham? It is possible to do that. Okay. Shubham, I guess your mic is audible. Please mute it. What if that has been answered? Now there are some languages like XML. So why to use this Java UI? I didn't get to do this. Aditya Kawai. Aditya, please write your question in brief, or you can unmute yourself and ask this. The second question is: are there any other layout managers? Of course, there are other layout managers like grid layout, our border layout, or even there is a grid layout with pixel positions. So we are going to explore them. We are going to write a program where there will be at least 15, 20 buttons on the plane. And then in that case, when we are going to add multiple buttons on the plane or on the frame, that time we are going to use the combination of grid layout and flow layout. And we are going to definitely develop a program in which we have to use a combination of border layout, grid layout, and flow layout, all three layout managers in the single program. So yes, there are different layout managers and we are going to see them. So that is the answer for Harshit's question. Harshit, have I answered your question? Yes, okay, Harshit Doshi's question is cleared. Next is, oh no, sir, here is only one option. Okay, that was the discussion proceeding with the Shubham. Facing some problem while. Now only one question is remaining in the chat window, which is from Aditya. There are some languages like XML, so why to use this Java UI? Can you explain, Aditya, what you really want to say? Because I'm not able to get this question itself.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, you are audible.
सर माझा क्वेश्चन असा होता की जेव्हा आम्ही अँड्रॉइड स्टुडिओमधनं अँड्रॉइड ॲप डेव्हलप करतो त्यावेळी XML लँग्वेज यूज करून UI डिझाईन करतो. आपण इथे आता
Okay.
जावा लँग्वेज यूज करून UI डिझाईन करत आहोत. तर त्याऐवजी आपण XML यूज करून सगळ्या सिस्टीम्सला ते जावामध्ये कन्वर्ट करू शकतो का?
Okay, so the answer will go like this. I am sure that you people, or most of you people, are already developing Android applications, or at least you have seen how to develop Android application. तिथे control असतात. Now there are few controls called as there is a file called as r.java. Have you seen that file, r.java file? Have you people seen the file called as r.java? There are basically three files get added. There is activity.xml file, then there is a r.java file, and there is a resource file. Have you seen these files, Aditya? Aditya, you can unmute yourself and tell me. Have you seen this file?
Yes, sir.
So r dot if you now what I want is you people just go and open this r.java file and other, like wherever your Gradle starts execution, you will find there is a main method and you will be, I am sure that you will find the code which actually creates a button and place it on the XML file. So XML is a coding language which will allow you to put all the things together. It's a kind of what we can say, whenever there is a communication between multiple components, multiple technologies, the XML will come in picture to provide a common platform using which the communication will happen. So in let's say right now you people are also using JSON language, JavaScript object notation. So the XML is kind of predecessor of the JSON. And what we use XML is also called as an information exchange language, between the multiple components or multiple technologies. So XML is not really creating a UI in the Android also. XML is just providing a platform using which you are able to create a UI. NetBeans is also a good example. When you drag and drop the components on the NetBeans, that time in background, the Java code gets added. The same thing happens in the Android Studio also. When you drag and drop the components on the XML file or the activity panel, that time in the background, the code to actually create the controls get added. Have I answered the question, Aditya? Aditya, are you there? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So
Thank you,
let's
sir.
see. Yeah, okay. Let me see whether there are other questions. Harshit Joshi, how to set the window to full screen? Okay. There is a property using which you can directly acquire the entire frame. Actually, you can put a scroll bar, you can set a size, you can get a screen size. There is something called as a window manager. Using window manager control, you can get the size of the entire frame, entire screen of whatever monitor you have. You can even get the exact pixel size of your monitor, and then you can leverage this thing. There is a control called as a grid layout with the pixel positions. I think you people should try NetBeans and create a frame inside them wherein the UI is created with the grid layouts pixel positions. And if you find that, what that layout does is it actually pinpoints each and every point of your screen by mapping it at the runtime and get the size. And the beauty of creating that UI, now let me show you what happens to the my frame that I created. Sorry. Now I am sure that you people have seen that the controls are automatically getting adjusted as I do the resize the frame, right? This is happening because of my flow layout. This is happening because of my flow layout. And when I resize this frame, when I resize this frame, the X and Y values of my frame are getting changed. And you can do it at a runtime also. Just you need to get a window manager. So it is possible to change it. You can change it to the full screen also. Harshit, have I answered this? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll write a code to set a screen size full. Before that, let's go one by one. So let's handle the events of all the components that we have added so far, right? So let me close this, close the chat window. Okay, let's handle the event of buttons, radio buttons. The same thing can be done with the checkbox, and then we'll proceed with the, what we can say, why you should use a different class for creating all the controls. What I will do is I'll create another class. I'm trying this at a runtime now. Class. Let me call it as R RBTN event. Oh, so this class become RBTN event, and here I'll say implements item listener. So this is the interface which will provide event handling mechanism for radio buttons. Now look what I can do is I can simply put a comma after the UI extends JFrame implements action listener, comma, implement item listener, that I can write here also. Here I can plainly go and write item listener and the job is done. So instead of that, what I'm doing is I'm creating a completely separate class called as RBTN event implements item listener. Now let me try to compile and we'll get an error. The error will be like you need to implement abstract method which is inside interface called as item listener, and the method name is value change. This is the method, and the event is item event. So I'll call it as IE, and here we can write the code which will actually handle the event. Now here, so let's see what are the merits of the coding style that we have prepared. As I've created all the controls in the main class, which is extends UI frame, these controls are available to the program. right? So now if what I want to do is I want to register my program, my controls with this external class event rbtn implements item listener. So what I can do is here I can write, let me say that if, let me get the message string message is equal to ie dot get action command, right? And if here I'll be able to say if message dot equals what is the label? Let me say what was the label? Yes, no are the radio buttons, right? Yeah, yes, no are the radio buttons. So I'll say if it equals to yes, then let's display a message on the screen. So I can go out the option pane dot show message dialog, and now here I cannot say this, right? Because this means the frame, the panel that can be used, right? So here I can't go and simply say this because this means the JFrame was the parent. JFrame was the parent, right? Because we were inside the same program. So here I do not have a leverage to use this. What I need to do is I need to create another UI component on which this J message box shall be able to display the message. Right now I'll pass it as null. And here I'll say yes, option selected is the text that I want to get displayed. Now I want this event handling mechanism to be registered on my option box. Now, as it's a completely entirely a different class, I have to create an object of this RBTN event. So what I can do here is I'll say RBTN event, and here say let's say RBTNO is the object name, right? So I have to initialize this object inside the constructor now. So here I will say here I'll simply add RBTNO is equal to new. Here I'll simply say equal to new. The name of the class is RBTN event. Fine. And here for this radio button dot add item listener, instead of saying this, which is a correct thing if my same class is using the implementing the item state or value change method, instead of that now I have to pass object RBTN no, not no, RBTN O. Whatever the object RBTN event no, this is not no, RBTN no. NO, right? So RBTN O. Now see, instead of using this, I'm using object of class called as RBTNNO, and it's a completely independent class. It has nothing to do with my main class, right? So let me try to compile. So there is error. Let's resolve these errors. Is not item get action command. Okay. So what I can do is instead of this, boolean b is equal to get source object OE is equal to OE dot get source, then G radio button RB equal to G radio button, let's say OE, Then if rb dot is selected, no, I'm doing it in a wrong method. So it was a correct method. Here I have to change the story. Here object OE is equal to I dot get source. Then J radio button RB is equal to J radio button, and here I'll say OE. And now if RB dot is selected is the method. Yes, it's selected. Now let me try this. Java C second Java C. Oh, I've used wrong method. Value change is the method with the list. Here I have to say item state change method name. Now if I say Java second, and now if I run, now if I select yes, okay, now you can see that yes option selected. Now when I'm selecting, I'm not selecting this, it is happening. Have I registered with the yes or no? I have registered with the event handling with the yes or no button. I have registered it with the no button. Let me register the event with the yes button too. RBTN, and here I have to say RBTN NO, and instead of NO, I have to say yes, YES. Now, if I compile and if I run, now if I select yes, I'll get this message, yes option selected. Fine. Now if I'm going to know, right now I'm handling only one if loop, so I'm getting yes option selected for both the things, right? Now what you can go on adding the code now, because you have got the source here, what you can do is here itself, you can do a lot of things now. For example, string message is equal to rb dot get action command, and if message dot equals is equal to yes, let me check with action command works or not. Yeah, works. And then here the option pane dot show message dialog, again I have to say null. Here I can't pass say this because I don't have a frame control with me, and here you can say option selected, yes option selected, and here let's say this is string control, now let me compile. Okay, I haven't put a semicolon at the end, a semicolon. Now let me select. Now this is a string. I'm sure you are people are able to select this, right? So this is happening completely in separate class, and you can pass the control of one object to the other of class and then do it. So I strongly recommend to always declare your members or the components in the class and don't declare them inside the main method. If you do the program, if you write the program which is creating component everything inside a main method, it will be very hard to write this independent coding or event handling mechanism. So it is always recommended to add your components in a separate class. So because I am doing everything in a separate class, I am able to pass on the controls from one class, which is my UI class, to a completely different class, which is RBTN event class. And as this is RBTN is in a separate event class, I am creating the object of that class called as RBTN NO. And now when I'm handling an event, I am adding this event handling as RBTN NO, right? So RBTN yes dot add action item listener. Here, if I say this implements action listener and this all code, if I write here after the UI class itself, then I will write here this. Here also I will write as this, but right now it's a completely a separate class. I'm initializing that class and adding the object of it, right? So I'm sure that you people got why we are using this keyword when we are adding action listener, because the same class is implementing action perform method. And in the case of radio button event handling, we are not using the same method. So we have to create an object of that class and then use it. Is it clear? And in the same style, now it is always a logical part. Now what I can do is I can make sure that both radio buttons are selected or not. If both radio buttons are not selected, then I can give a warning message. That is the answer for the Shubham's question. Okay, is it clear or any doubt? So I'm going to conduct a quick poll here. So let's have quick poll. A question will come in a moment on your screen. The question is coming in a moment. So the poll is open. Everyone, quickly give the responses. Let me show you the poll results. So 22% people and okay, 42, 20, actually only 22% people have got exact correct answer. We'll start the next session with the same point, and all the earlier video sessions will be uploaded on the Moodle by end of the day. You can leave the meeting.